You pull into Pelican Bay. This is like early 94. And I just remember like when the bus pulls in, you feel like you're going into like a dungeon. You're going underground.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because I'm going to the shoe. You pull into the shoe, and there you don't see nothing, right? Like there's, ceilings, there's cages on the ceilings, and you feel like you're underground. You feel like you're in a dungeon.
Right.
And it was back then when it first opened, like it was like this cool fortress, Pelican Bay. This is where we send the worst of the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
They try to like glamorize it, but yeah, it was a crazy looking place,
Well, they built it, I think, just to house shot callers and people that couldn't stay on Mainline in the rest of California.
Yeah, so that's where they sent like all the top shot callers from all the main prison gangs. And
is it true that that's where the orders are given for the rest of the gangs in California?
It was back then, and I think for a better part of like the last 20 years, it probably was. I know things have changed a lot over the last few years. But yeah, definitely. When I got up into Pelican Bay, they put me in a pod. So my cellie was an OG from Fresno, and he was still a Norteño. He wasn't a bulldog. So some of the OG guys from Fresno, they were still Norteños. They weren't bulldogs. It was like the younger generation that was coming out with the bulldog stuff, right? So he was an older cat, and I was in a pod with a couple cats from the NF. So when I got there, I was in a pod with some heavy hitters. You know what I mean? That were like, a step away from, like giving orders for the whole organization.
Wow. And these guys are doing life, a lot of lifers?
No, they're validated gang members.
Yeah.
So they're not getting out of the shoe. Like anytime they get out and come back, they go right back to the shoe because they're validated gang members.
Right, right. Were there any riots on like the main yard or anything
like
that?
Yeah. So I
killed?
I stayed in in the Pelican Bay shoe, you really have no access to anybody. Right. And up there, it was different than Corcoran. So there's I don't want to call it a peace treaty, but there was not a green light on anybody up there. So if they popped our door when we were in the shoe and there was like a white dude on the yard, or a white dude on the tier or a Mexican dude on the tier, it was just to basically stand your ground. Mm-hmm. You weren't to rush anybody. You weren't to attack anybody. So that's how it was there, because that's where the big dogs were at, and that was the agreement they had in place, where there wouldn't be any wars going on at that moment. That can change in a day, that could change in a week, that could change in 6 months, but during that time it wasn't like that.
Right.
So I stayed in the shoe for about till early 95. I remember I got to the shoe May 95. They let me go to the Mainline. So I got to the Mainline, and I think back then they had 4A and 4B. And I go once again to the reception side. I got to go through classification before they clear me for yard. And I think I was on 4B. I came out to the yard, and I mean, it's very different, right? Because I know up there, I'm like surrounded by killers. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, back then we had weights. We had weights back then too. So there's the weight piles, right? Yeah. There's the basketball courts. There's a handball courts. Yeah. There's the different tables. And like every faction has their own piece of real estate on the yard.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Who was deepest up there?
Sureños.
Still.
Always. And a lot of blacks too. Mm-hmm. But, the blacks have different factions with the Crips and the Bloods. Sometimes if a Crip gets into something, that's a Crip thing then. The Bloods aren't going to get involved. Or if the Bloods get into something, that's a Blood thing. The Crips aren't going to get involved unless it's a full-on race thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's different. But I saw that happen a lot up there. But yeah, coming out to that yard, 4B, I was only there for maybe a couple of weeks because they ended up moving me to 4A. So when I moved to 4A and got settled in there, this is like mid-95 now, that yard by far was the most violence I've ever seen in my life. I think like the first day on the yard, some dude got his throat cut. They airlifted him to the hospital. And that's a real eye-opener. That's my first day on the yard. It was a Sureño taking out another Sureño. Yeah. But, when they got to put the yard down and a helicopter has to land on the yard to get this dude out of here before he dies, that's a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
And then
literally, so you guys are all on the ground as the helicopter, the life flight?
Yeah, the whole yard is down. The whole yard is down. So that's like hundreds of people because it's the Mainline now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that happened. And then the next day, something else would happen. The next day, something else would happen. But it was mostly certain segments taking out their own people. It wasn't like any mixed gang stuff that was going on.
It always is with professional lifers and killers. It seems like they're always just taking out their own.
Yeah. And then what it is that a lot of people would come out of the hole. A lot of people would come out of the shoe. This guy did something wrong. That guy did something wrong. As soon as he comes out to Mainline, then they're getting whacked.
That happened again and again and again.
Yeah. So literally every single day, like almost something happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was like I said, a real eye opener, just a lot of violence, people getting booked all the time.
Yeah.
And so I'm in Pelican Bay now. We're talking about 96, I think 96. I remember one time, that's when Tupac got killed. So that was like a big thing on the yard.
Yeah.
I used to have like Tupac's music. I was a big fan of Tupac. I remember when he got killed.
Right.
And so like, these are big things that are happening in the real world, but we're in cages, but we still, keep track of stuff. You know what I mean? And I remember for me as a young man, when he got killed, that was like a big thing to me because he was my favorite artist. But just moving forward into like 97, that's when there's videotape of this stuff online. That's when a big riot jumped off between the Sureños and the blacks. And you see everybody just like in their raincoats, right? Up there, they used to give us raincoats. Like they would give us a full on yellow raincoat that would be like from up here all the way down to like your calves.
Yeah.
You get a little rain hat because it's raining like hell up there. You know what I mean? And so you just see like this video, and it's still online circulating.
Oh, I've seen
Google,
that
like
one.
the prison riot, and they shot at a bunch of inmates, and people got shot because it was such a big riot.
Okay, so this was a race riot now.
It was a race riot between the blacks and the Sureños.
Can you tell us what was behind that?
I just think disrespect. You know what I mean? Like if somebody got disrespected, and the Sureños are, pretty hardcore. If they get the word from the back, basically the shoe, like, hey, we got to go take off on these guys, then that's what it was.
So that means somebody really didn't make things right, because normally people get hit by their own in order to stop a race riot. Yeah. Right? It's to keep the peace. This dude's getting booked because he disrespected a black, let's say. Yeah. So it sounds like things really weren't. Somebody got disrespected. Somebody disrespected the Sureños, and their gang didn't make it right. Yeah. And the thing is though, too, like for me, at least during my time, anytime I seen any races or any factions go at it mixed, it was always going to be a melee or a riot. It wasn't like, oh, that was a one-on-one thing, let's squash it. I never saw that happen. Back then, it was like, if one of you disrespect one of us, it's all of us. You know what I mean? And that's how it was back then. Were you part of that riot?
No, because that was with the Sureños and the blacks. Okay. That was with the Sureños and the blacks, but it was like all the blacks. It wasn't just like the Crips and the Bloods. It was like all the blacks, all the Sureños. And
was that the yard you were on?
Yeah, I was on that yard when that happened.
Okay, so
we're just getting out of the way. When you see everybody just running in different directions, and there's like the weight piles and the track, and then there's a fight over here, fight over there, fight over here, fight over there. It wasn't our beef. Yeah. So we just get out of the way.
Did you know that was about to happen?
No, we didn't know. We didn't know.
If you go watch the video, that's probably the most famous filmed prison riot in the history of the world. Like it's pouring rain, and there's dudes in yellow raincoats, and there's inmates everywhere. There's hundreds of people on the yard, and it's like a spark. It's like an ember, and then the whole thing's up in flames. It's fascinating. Yeah. So when that happened, they locked down all the blacks. Hang on, just walk us through how you were feeling. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah. So the way we were running our program at the time, the Norteños, we had like a couple tables that was like our real estate. And so we would post up at our tables every time we come out for yard. That's where we posted up at. And we would have like maybe 10 or 20 guys, 10 guys here, 10 guys there. We would try to keep people separate just in case something happened. You don't want to lose the whole team. You know what I mean?
Did you guys have weapons, or did you guys have lookouts?
we had stuff hidden on the yard. Yeah. We would have people on the yard. I carried a razor blade in my mouth the whole time. Every time I went to the yard, I had a razor blade in my mouth. Wow. Yeah, every single time. And then we would be on the yard at our tables. And then we would have guys posted up at our tables, like to secure the table. Right. So we would literally be posted up like this. So when people walk by, we're just posted up, like making sure nobody's trying to rush us.
And you guys rotate guard duty, right?
Very, very militant. And then we rotate, and then we'd also rotate to walk the track to just kind of monitor everything that's going on. You know what I mean? And, you know, we had different type of security levels, half 60, full 60. Half 60 is like be on alert. Full 60 is like be very, very alert. Something's going to pop off.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
And that day, were you guys on full 60?
Yeah, we're on a full 60 because people are walking around the yard and they're like, hey, we're hearing this might happen. This might happen. Like, hey, we see these guys over here. I've seen this guy pull a piece out the ground. So we were on a full 60 and, you know, there's people walking the track. I was actually at the tables on one of the yards on the upper yard because there's an upper yard and a lower yard, and there's a fence that separates both yards, but there's a doorway so you can walk back and forth.
I see.
And
the tension, I mean, you must feel it, that energy that humans give off, right? Did you feel like,
yeah, for sure.
And it's thick right now.
And you just got to really like keep your eyes open. Like for me, one of the things that was always preached to me from the very beginning is awareness, to be aware of your surroundings, know who's around you. So you can see when people are doing something out of the ordinary on the yard, you see all the blacks go to one side or all the blacks congregating in one group. They don't normally do that. They're getting ready. So the next thing you know, it was on the upper yard. It jumped off. And
what do you hear?
I mean,
do you hear screaming or is it pretty quiet?
No, because you hear the gun tower saying, get down, because they started yelling at people to get down immediately because these are like fights going up everywhere. Yeah. But I mean, you have, 2, 3, maybe COs in the gun tower. You maybe have about 10 COs on the yard, but you got hundreds of inmates on the yard. You know what I mean? So, the COs start running from other facilities to come onto our yard. They're trying to break up the fights. Us, we just kind of get out of the way, get on the ground. It wasn't our beef. But I mean, this went on for probably like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, they didn't listen.
Yeah, and people were getting shot.
One guy, we'll lay a video over the episode. One guy gets shot in the head.
Yeah.
I think he's coming at a guy with a weapon.
Yeah.
And then you just see him just slump over. And he's just bleeding out.
Yeah.
Wow. Did anybody get stabbed?
Yeah, for sure. A bunch of people got stabbed, like, I don't know, probably 10, 20 guys got stabbed, like in those type of prisons. And during those years, everybody had a piece. Like there wasn't no fist fighting on these yards. Like you're breaking skin. You're trying to hurt somebody. You're trying to kill somebody. Yeah. You're hitting somebody in the neck. You're hitting somebody in the face. You're hitting somebody in the eye. Yeah. You're trying to really maim somebody.